Today's interwebkaiju here, something rare for the channel. Today, I'm not going to be talking about giant monsters. Instead, I'm going to be doing quick reviews of all 14 of the Puppet Master movies from 1989 to 2018. As you can see from that B-roll footage, I don't even have them all, but I have seen them all. So let's start chronologically from the beginning. Puppet Master. I've seen every movie in this series, and this is by far the best of the bunch. Definitely not a perfect movie, but it sticks out in the sea of films out there. The main characters are psychics that have been gathered at the Bodega Inn, and they're all fairly memorable. The music, specifically the main theme, is wonderful. The acting is fine. Something that would be long gone in the series come a few entries later. The puppets look good and are animated well. The puppets in this film are Pinhead, Leech Woman, Tumbler, Jester, and Blade. They all have interesting designs and are far from forgettable. The film's a little slow at first, but the third act is great. There isn't as much gore as some would expect from a movie about killer puppets, but there are plenty of creepy scenes throughout. I gave Puppet Master 5 out of 5 stars. Puppet Master 2, the sequel to Puppet Master, sees another group of psychics running into trouble at the Bodega Inn. There's a new puppet, Torch, and he's great. His design is odd, and he kills a bratty little kid that has no fear of self-moving puppets. The other puppets are back, and for the most part are well animated. The acting is alright, nothing spectacular, but nothing too awful, save for the overacting farmer lady. The story is a little less to my taste than the first movies, but clearly sits well with other horror movies of its time. Again, there are some creepy scenes. The worst part about this movie is that its storyline and ending were never really brought up or expanded on in future installments. I gave Puppet Master 2 4 out of 5 stars. Puppet Master 3. This is a different kind of Puppet Master film. Gone are the psychics and the Bodega Inn, and instead we see Toulon alive in Nazi Germany with his puppets. The new puppet in this movie is Six Shooter, and he is quite well done. The puppets are all animated well, and there is a good scene where Six Shooter scales the building side. This movie has a good end kill scene where Toulon gets his revenge. I really enjoyed the actor who played Toulon, and the rest of the actors do a good job. I gave Puppet Master 3 4 out of 5 stars. Puppet Master 4. The series returns to modern times and back to the Bodega Inn. The psychics and Nazis are gone, and in their place of odd movie ingredients are demons and lasers. The puppet-sized demons, totems I believe, have a very cool design and have some good kill scenes. The main demon, however, looks really odd and not in a good way. This is the part of the series when the acting really drops in quality. The puppet effects are still fine, but there is a laser effects that are quite odd, if not mostly misplaced in this film. The characters for the most part are memorable, though some of them are quite annoying. This film is directly followed by Puppet Master 5, and I would suggest that the viewer watch them back to back, even though in my opinion this one is better, even with the incomplete story. I gave Puppet Master 4 a 3 out of 5. Puppet Master 5. Puppet Master 5 continues the story of the new Puppet Master fighting off demons from Puppet Master 4. There are some interesting scenes with the police actually questioning the characters about the murder, something that would most likely happen in real life, though is rarely seen in movies like these. Sadly, the acting isn't any better, and the main demon is still as badly designed. The new human character is more forgettable than the last films. The final new puppet is pretty awful as well. Gave Puppet Master 5 a 3 out of 5. Curse of the Puppet Master. Curse of the Puppet Master sees the puppets with another new owner. This movie had lots of promise and even a few good scenes. In the end though, it falls short of anything too exciting or memorable. The acting was alright. My main gripe is with the final act of the film and the horrible final puppet design and animation. Gave Curse of the Puppet Master a 3 out of 5. Retro Puppet Master. The series goes back in time again, before the puppets from the other films were even made. In this film, we see older versions of Blade, Pinhead, and Six Shooter, as well as new puppets, Dr. Death, Drill Sergeant, and Cyclops. Most of the designs are fine. The animation takes a dip down in this installment, but nothing too awful. The premise seems promising at first, but soon falls into a snooze fest. I gave Retro Puppet Master a 2 out of 5. Puppet Master The Legacy. Let's address this right off the bat. This is a clip show. Most of the movie is made up from stock footage, and the new scenes are mainly just bad acting and not so well written lines. The clips, though, are usually the best scenes from the past, so pre-DVD internet era, this would have been nice to have. The series films are retold by characters in the present who try to make one coherent timeline through the films. There are still some plot holes, but it's nice to see how they filled in some time gaps. They do skip over some spots of the previous movies, though. It's not a good movie by any standards, but it's more interesting than some of the older films in the series. I gave Puppet Master The Legacy a 2 out of 5. Puppet Master vs. Demonic Toys. Even with Corey Feldman's overacting and the bad puppet designs, it's far from the worst Puppet Master film. I gave Puppet Master vs. Demonic Toys a 3 out of 5. That's gotta be the worst review I've ever seen. I'm pretty sure this is a sci-fi original movie, and I think it's a Christmas movie, and like the puppets get kind of destroyed, and Corey Feldman like rebuilds them with like robot arms and stuff. On to the next one, Puppet Master Axis of Evil. While it certainly isn't the worst of the sequels, it still suffers from bad pacing, awful acting, bad puppet designs, and some cringeworthy animation. On the positive side, it's an original story with new characters instead of a clip show. The music, while not spectacular, does fit well in most scenes, and the cinematography is actually well done, switching angles at the right moment, and there's a nice POV drill shot of Tumbler. Tumbler and Pinhead look so bad in this movie, but Blade and Leech Woman are about, if not slightly worse, the same in terms of how they look. There's a new puppet, and he is nothing extravagant, but his design is not nearly as bad as Tank Puppet from Curse. As the title suggests, the movie takes the Nazi part of the series lore and expands on it. And while I'd rather take that over the whole demon hellspin, I'd still rather have the series go back to the psychics of the first two films. I gave Puppet Master Axis of Evil 3 out of 5. Puppet Master X, Axis Rising. Even without a clip show plot, demons, robotic limbs, or an overacting Corey Feldman, this is sadly the worst entry of the series. The acting is worse than the previous film, the new puppets look awful, and the old puppets don't look much better. Blade having the only decent portrayal. The two main characters are even more bland than they were in the previous film. There's some cringeworthy CG blood and gunshot scenes. The music isn't bad, nothing spectacular, but I wanted to have something positive to say about this movie. Somehow the 86-minute runtime seemed to take forever. Hopefully the third installment of this Axis trilogy is better. I gave Puppet Master X, Axis Rising, 1 out of 5. Puppet Master Axis Termination. The good acting is a surprise for this series, but that doesn't cover up the bad story, uninteresting character personalities, and odd lighting choices. There's also people in puppet costumes, green screen to be running around in shots with normal characters. It looks pretty bad, but it's over quickly. I'm just more confused as why it was done, and more so why it was kept in the final edit. The CG blood for the gunshot wounds look just as bad as all the other low-budget blood for bloodshot wounds. Sadly, there's no final fight between the two puppet regimes in the finale. There are some good kills though. I gave Puppet Master Axis Termination a 3 out of 5, which is probably higher than I should have given it. Maybe a 2 out of 5 or a 2.5 out of 5. Regardless, Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich. This is the reboot, I guess, from a different studio. It's not by Full Moon. I don't know who it was by, but here's the review. So there are a lot of puppets and a lot a lot of kill scenes. Those kill scenes are usually very quick and lack the suspense of the ones found in the original series though. Back to the puppets, there are quite a few new ones. My favorite being the Frogman, who sadly is barely in the film. One thing that sets this entry apart from the others is that there's multiples of several puppets, which is kind of cool due to some of them having slight differences, but also makes the puppets lose a bit of their personality, something that is also hurt by the sheer number of them. Some of the original puppets that return actually only get basically a cameo appearance, and with so many puppets it's a bit odd that Leech Woman doesn't make an appearance. I like that the puppets are back in a hotel setting. The soundtrack and sound effects are good. Everything looks decent, nothing spectacular though. The acting is alright. The main character is pretty bland and gives most lines quite deadpan. The worst part is that there's no resolution. We don't even get to learn the real secrets behind this timeline's puppets. Regardless of all this movie is enjoyable and one of the more watchable films of the franchise. I gave Puppet Master The Littlest Reich 4 out of 5. And then we are on to Puppet Master Blitzkrieg Massacre, which is the first entry in Full Moon's Bunker of Blood series. I was told this was supposed to link up all the Puppet Master films using clips from previous entries. While it does use clips from the older films, there is no linking them. It's just a clip show. There is a few minutes of new material at the beginning and at the end of the movie, which are moving comics with voiceovers. These both look and sound nice. This is a new narrative, and I assume will be continuing throughout the other entries in the Bunker of Blood series. The main protagonist in the story watches a VHS that contains all the Puppet Master clips. What we have left in the runtime is just an array of clips of just spanning the Puppet Master franchise with no real rhyme or reason. I'm not big on clip shows myself, but if I had to pick, I'd prefer the old method of splitting them up into categories so that clips are together. That being said, almost all the clips are put together using great scene cuts and transitions. At the very least, I got to see some cool scenes, and Blitzkrieg Massacre reminded me that I should really watch Puppet Master 2 again. I gave Puppet Master Blitzkrieg Massacre a 2 out of 5. So that was it. Those are my Amazon reviews for all the Puppet Master films. Thanks for watching.